Hello there, good afternoon, and welcome to the news update on Good Afternoon Ghana with me, Desmond Okrekudans. Welcome to live from our studios here in Northridge. We are live on DSTV channel 277 and also on Facebook at Metro TV Ghana. I am Desmond Okrekudans. We'll take a look at our headlines. Now, coming up in the bulletin, chiefs and the people of Befi traditional area in the Kpando municipality of the Volta region strongly urge President Mahama not to allow any individual or group to interfere in the nominating of MMDCEs. We will tell you more, and also coming up, we will tell you about the former Finance Minister Ken Furiata, who has filed a second suit against the office of the Special Prosecutor over the wanted person tag. And also coming up, mobile money operators welcome approval by Parliament to officially abolish the controversial E-Levy.
We have Congress.
Hello again, many thanks for joining us. We begin the bulletin from the Volta region, where the chiefs and people of the Befi traditional area in the Kpando municipality have strongly urged President John Dramani Mahama not to allow any individual or group to interfere with or override his authority in nominating municipal and district chief executives in the Volta region. According to them, if such injustice is allowed to stand, they cannot guarantee the continued peace and stability of the municipality. This call came following the recent MMDCE's nomination by President John Dramani Mahama, which showed interference in the voting nomination list. The list indicated that the Kpando nomination was marked as pending, suggesting that the process had been interrupted. Amechie John Agbosu is the spokesperson of the concerned group.
We have concrete evidence to support our claim. The master list visibly shows that a name starting with capital E and ending with small e was cancelled and replaced with the word pending. Notably, none of the other candidates from Kpando municipality has names that fit this pattern. This strongly indicates that Madam Elizabeth Elom Chekpodi was indeed the president's choosing nominee. We have learned that some individuals with vested interests in Kpando are attempting to alter this list by removing the name of our preferred candidate, Madam Elizabeth Edem Chekpodi, who was rightfully nominated for the position of MCE for Kpando municipality.
Now, away from that, doctors at the Komfo Anokye Teaching Hospital in Kumasi have announced the suspension of all surgical cases with immediate effect due to a water shortage that has hit the hospital since last week. In a memo dated March 25, 2025, the Komfo Anokye Doctors Association informed management the action is in the best interest of patient safety and security. According to the association, the directorate is faced with severe challenges due to the ongoing water shortage in the region. This, the doctors say, has significantly affected the provision of essential healthcare services. It's noted that though water is a critical resource in maintaining hygiene, conducting surgical procedures, and ensuring patients' care and safety, the resource is in short supply at the facility, compromising patients' care in general. And we are joined by our Ashanti Regional Correspondent, Abdul Basis Suleiman, for more on this. Hello, Basis. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. How dire is the situation at the hospital now?
Yeah, good afternoon, Desmond, and good afternoon to our viewers. Yes, even though the suspension took effect not long ago, but as you know, surgery is an emergency that you can't put any timeline or delay on it. Yes, according to the doctors, they would not receive any new cases in terms of that has surgical aspect, but the existing patients will be taken care of until the management address the issue of water shortages. That the doctors have officially informed management about their decision to suspend all the surgical cases due to the ongoing water shortages. But the management is yet to respond to the doctor. As I speak with you right now, the doctors are still meeting with management to ensure that their request is being addressed. According to them, water is very necessary to ensure that patients are safe when it comes to maintaining healthcare standards. And it's not only the emergency place that the doctors are suspending. The orthopedic department is also needs substantial kind of water to address their issue. That place too, they are suspending temporarily the admission of new patients until water is resolved. So currently, even though almost all the patients that are there are being taken care of, I'm thinking that going forward it will be very dire if the situation is not addressed. Even though the facility is having some reservoirs that are supposed to provide the facility with water, but getting access to Ghana Water Company is very difficult, which complements the existing water. So without that, it's becoming very difficult for the hospital to be able to use or the limited water to address all the issues in the hospital. So it's very dire situation as I speak with you.
Okay, but Basis would believe that this situation has been happening over a period. What really has been done about it, and how are even patients reacting to this action by the doctors?
Yes, even aside the doctors using the water, even the patients themselves uses water, because those on admission, they have to bath at the hospital, they have to use the washroom, they have to use even cleaning the facility comes with water. So water is very essential that you cannot, something that you cannot ignore in hospitals, or especially a referral center like Komfo Anokye that accommodates a whole lot of patients from far and near. So most of the patients, upon hearing the suspension of surgery, are not happy because they know it will go a long way to affect them. Most of them too have emergencies that need to be attended to, and these people, if measures are not being taken, will definitely have to compound with their situation or refer to other facilities to seek private facility to seek for health care over there.
Does it look like there's any headway that will be made with this? Looking at how important, as you mentioned, water is to any facility, does it look like in the next coming days or in the next few days something will be done about it?
Well, it's something that management is trying to see. As I said, they are still in meeting to see that, to ensure that the issues that the doctors have raised are being addressed. And you know, as I said earlier, currently they have some reservoirs, but it's not enough to take care of the entire facility. So I don't know if they will be able to add some kind of liters to what they have, or they would be in touch with the Ghana Water Company to ensure, you know, there is an ongoing work by the Ghana Water Company to ensure that most of their pipelines are being extended to other places. So management says they are doing all that they could to be able to restore water flow in the facility. So I'm very sure maybe in a day or two we will see some kind of changes. Otherwise, it will create unpleasant situation at the Komfo Anokye Hospital.
Okay, Abdul Bassett, thank you very much for your time. Bassett is our Shanti Regional Correspondent, giving us some updates on the situation at the Komfo Anokye Teaching Hospital, where the doctors are saying that they cannot work due to the lack of water in the facility. We'll keep tabs on that and bring you more details subsequently. Now, away from that, former Finance Minister Komfo Anokye has filed another legal action against the Office of the Special Prosecutor, seeking a court order to prevent the Anti-Corruption Agency from labeling him as a wanted person or a fugitive from justice. Now, in a motion filed by his legal team, Mr. Anokye argues that the OSP has violated principles of administrative justice by continuing to display his photograph and details on its official Facebook page and other platforms. Definitely a story that we'll be keeping tabs on as it develops. And we'll go back to the Volta region, where some smallholder farmers in Torgorme, Alabonu, located in the northern district of the region, are calling on the government to intervene in a land dispute that threatens their lives and livelihoods. According to the farmers, the land they have cultivated for generations has been taken over by investors who claim the government acquired the land without their consent.
Metro TV's Volta regional correspondent Gabriel Asempa, who visited the affected farms, reports that the land in question was acquired by the government in 2012 with assistance from the World Bank. It was aimed at providing irrigation for smallholder farmers to boost and add value to their crop cultivation. The completion of the irrigation project included the construction of canals. However, an unfulfilled part of the agreement led to investors preparing the land for crop cultivation without the knowledge of the landowners. The investors have now deployed security personnel to intimidate the landowners and prevent them from accessing their farmlands. The farmholder farmers claim the authorities of the Pond irrigation project have failed to uphold the agreement made with them when the land was acquired. Speaking to Metro TV, the farmers, dressed in red and chanting war songs, expressed their frustration, vowing not to sit back and allow the investors to take their lands. Maulawe Jomato is the chairman of the Smallholder Farmers Association.
After they finish, the local farmers will have theirs. Then the big farmers, the investors, will also have theirs. Then after they finish, what we got to see is they share the land among themselves. We have land allocation committee on the project. The land allocation committee, they don't even know they share the land. So the only thing we see, the big farmers start to dress our farms. You go to your farm, they destroy the farm, and they say they buy there.
Agbovi Peter and Lydia Titunoviogbo are two of the affected farmers who also voiced their grievances.
They
destroy our farms, including our cassava farm, and it is bringing tension among us. It is the government that brought all this suffering to the community. We want the government to return our farmland to us so that peace can prevail.
The investors are now telling us that we cannot cultivate our land anymore, and they brought in security personnel to the farm to intimidate us. We are calling on the authorities, especially the MP and President Mahama, to help us.
The Assembly member for Alabonu electoral area, Promise Sakpasu, described the situation as alarming and a serious threat to the community's well-being. He urged the government to intervene before the situation escalates.
Government brought in some representatives from World Bank to introduce to us that they are coming to add value. They realize there is poverty here, so they are coming to eliminate it by constructing canal here to introduce irrigation farming for us to be working here. So there was a time they came and told us to vacate from the land because they are coming to develop the land. And before we realized, they've started giving out the developed land and then undeveloped land to big-time investors. So, and now they have occupied the majority of the land working on. And meanwhile, the indigenous hasn't gotten their land yet, as we speak now. So the indigenous are always struggling to have farmland to work.
Now, the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, Samuel Nati George, says Africa must position itself in AI by providing diverse data to make global AI models more inclusive. He argued that instead of pursuing large-scale compute infrastructure, African nations should leave the leading countries in the world to who they build those data centers. He was speaking at the launch of the Awo Institute and Ahimfie aimed at digitizing Africa's cultural archives.
The launch, which took place at Osu in Accra, saw in attendance personalities from the creative arts industry and dignitaries including His Excellency Virginia Evelyn Palmer, the U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Samia Nkrumah, founder of Kwame Nkrumah Foundation, the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations, Samuel Nate George, among others. The Awo Institute and Ahimfie, launched by Dekan Center, focuses on safeguarding African traditions, languages, stories, and local knowledge through research, education, and advocacy. Ahimfie, inspired by traditional places, serves as cultural space, promoting storytelling and artifact preservation. Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Dekan Center, Paul Ninson, said the Institute will shape the future of African heritage.
It's an ecosystem that can support and will support and preserve the history and the knowledge of Africa. That's all we set our institute to do. We all know how many archives, history, and heritage has been lost over the years because of colonization, because of improper structures and policies here in Ghana. And for us, that is exactly what we're doing, to build policies, to build systems, to build infrastructures that can preserve and support and showcase the work of cultural heritage and in Africa and in Ghana as a whole.
He shared some challenges bedeviling the Dekan Institute, but expressed commitment in championing the preservation of African heritage.
Limited resources are some of the challenges we face. Cooperation. Now, after building an institution, sometimes it's even very difficult to even get into some of the rooms to support and help other people, right? The gatekeeping and all these things. And also resources, right? What we build here, there's no school for it.
Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, Samuel Nate George, speaking at the event, stressed the need to leverage AI to not only transform Ghana's economy, but preserve Ghana's culture.
We need to look at where, as a country, we're going to position ourselves in this whole AI ecosystem. Let's not try to do everything. And for me, as the ministry and under the leadership of His Excellency President Mahama, our vision is to use AI to improve our nation's food security in agriculture, drive education, and drive healthcare. And that's why we need to begin to build large language models, working with traditional authority and with organizations like Awo to build a repository of our local languages.
The MP for Ningo Pram also pledged government support for private sector and non-profit organizations like the Khan Center.
Watching the news updates here on Good Afternoon Ghana. We'll do some other stories, and the former Central Member of Parliament, Kennedy Agyapong, has publicly addressed his loss in a defamation case against investigative journalist Anas Arameyao Anas. The former New Patriotic Party flag bearer contended that the experience will only make him a better person. Speaking to his supporters upon his return from the States while the case was heard, the vocal politician noted that those who decide to speak the truth and fight for the voiceless in society often endure such ordeals. His comments come after the Essex County Superior Court in the United States awarded Anas Arameyao Anas $18 million in damages in a defamation lawsuit against him.
This opportunity to thank all of you for the wonderful welcome you've given to me and my wife. I thank you very much. This will inspire me to continue to do whatever I'm doing. Sure. This indicates that you appreciate every effort that I'm making to speak for the voice. That's true. Yes. So I would say that we should all stay calm. Nobody should worry. Because anybody who decides to speak the truth and fight for the voiceless will go through all this ordeal. And with this, through this ordeal, I become a better person. Sure. I become a better person to fight and defend the country and the voices. Thank you to all of you. And in due course, you will hear from me.
And that was Kennedy Agyapong. Now, the director of Ghana Communications Technology University, Nusrat Jahan Abubakar, has voiced concerns over consumer protection rights in light of recent price hikes by some service providers. In an interview with the Metro News, Dr. Abubakar expressed shock over the lack of prior communication in informing the consumers before adjustment of prices, emphasizing the importance of informing consumers in advance to prepare them for such changes.
One of the days I used to see, there was this man that fronted it so much, Kofi Kapito, talking about consumer rights and what we need to do and others. I think it's been relegated to the background where we don't see people fronting, we don't see, for that matter, even establishments or government bodies or whichever division that is supposed to see to it that suppliers and for that matter companies do not take the consumer for granted and that we are giving value for money. Talking about let us see this. In fact, a week ago I was to renew because I was giving the list. When I did, I saw that what I used to pay wasn't what I was supposed. So I thought it was a mistake. I cancelled and went back. Even the information to even it didn't go down to so many of us. I don't know of the others, but I didn't even know that there was going to be price hikes. Today, the government of the day is, I'm quoting, that the nation is going to be rebuilt or is in the process of rebuilding. We are told as workers that some 10% has come true. Taxes has taken it. Okay. Here is a case that a Ghanaian, a worker, your take home is not taking you home already. All business entities and others are supposed to share in the vision of the government of the day and make it easy and let the system work on the 24-hour economy we're all hearing. But you see, somebody that is to say the least, I would say that this is not needed, not this time, not anything. I think that they should reconsider that. And the government agencies that are supposed to see to it that the customer is treated right should be done.
Now, the Directorate of Research, Innovation and Consultancy of the Ghana Communications Technology University has organized the third edition of the Technology Business Society Seminar Series in Accra. There's more in this report.
Now, the third edition of the Technology, Business and Society Seminar Series, known as TEBUS, was held today at the Ghana Communications Technology University. The theme for this year's seminar was The Africa We Want, the Africa We Should Claim. The event featured prominent personalities from the Durban University of Technology in South Africa. Professor Nichirera, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Management Sciences at the Durban University of Technology, delivered the keynote address.
Africa we want is the Africa where members of our continent will not perish in the Mediterranean, because they will see no need for them to run to another continent. It is then Africa where they will be able to utilize their skills here in the continent successfully for the development of their own continent. But it should be preceded by the leadership, the relevant leadership that we desire and deserve.
And now the chairperson of the seminar, Professor Emmanuel Ohene Afuakwa, Vice Chancellor of Ghana Communication Technology University, noted that the third edition of TEBUS aims to foster a partnership with Durban University of Technology. This collaboration focuses on utilizing technology to enhance industrialization and reduce the digital divide, especially in a sector such as health, agriculture, and education.
The technology that should come through innovation and creativity should be able to address problems existing in health. We as an institution will be solution bearers so that the students that we are training will go out there and address the problems of the day and help solve problems in Ghana and let Ghana grow.
Additionally, some students from Ghana Communications Technology University shared their thoughts with Metro Business.
I came here to expect more from how the advancements of technology in Africa will improve the work and the labor in Ghana and Africa as a whole.
So I think the industries are supposed to accept we, the technology students, to use our idea to enhance their industry.
Well, the third edition of Technology, Business and Society series ended today. We're yet to see the fourth, also to harness technology in advancing businesses in Africa. It's the Ghanaian economy left behind. This has been the call of the Ghana Communications and Technology University. For Metro Business, my name is Dominic Nana Kwamena Ansapra.
That was my colleague Dominic Ansapra, and that's a wrap up the news updates this afternoon on the show. I'm Desmond Okrikudans. We're taking a break. When we come back, Emmanuel Kusefriye will be seated and it's Business Edge today on the show. So please stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
Ama, nansi mi general well-being enkoye kwao. Ama ma ye bohu se kontomra akija.
Nansi me hu se me nyo basima kura. Ama me kunu me into kwankwa. Oyiwa. Enye mo go. Give us GC lecture and any capsules. Aye numbum. En wasam na mo kana. Ebwa emma ene meme nyina. Na ma wo ba ye obesima. Na be ma so aye be masima. Ya, we be bua wuku. Ama ne giant sa wo de hye butum. Na wanyinya na nim tisese ni wo yi chokwa. Give us GC mixture and a capsule. Ashisa.
A pin for a batter, one more menu for one and Kwada when you feel to me. Ashisa.
Attention all farmers, are you ready to take your crops to the next level? Introducing 3 effective organic composts that will revolutionize your farming practices. ACAP, KCAP and IRICOP brings to you the ultimate solution for your fertilizer needs. Introducing the ACAP Grade A, KCAP Equiafua Jinkwa and the IRICOP with cocoa blend, palm blend and mulch. These are made from locally sourced municipal solid waste, and these are the perfect choice for sustainable farming. Join the organic revolution today. Boost your crop yield, improve soil health, and support sustainable farming practices. Choose ACAP, KCAP, and ARICOP organic compost for a greener and bountiful harvest. For your purchase and more information, call the numbers on your screen. Our products are endorsed by COCOBOD, Planting for Food and Jobs, and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture.
Well, let me welcome you once again. So, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on the business part of Good Afternoon Ghana. And I've told you that when you see me here in the afternoon, it's all about business, it's all about employment, it's all about the transport sector, agriculture, everything that you can have to do with the growth of the economy, how we can expand the entire economy of our dear country and our beloved Ghana. And I've explained to you that on the show, would be having all the forex, all the commodities market, all the trends and the analysis that we need to bring up to you or bring you up to speed with. And so I'm here this afternoon, and of course I'm telling you about what's been happening, at least in the week and in the previous week, about the entire business landscape of the country. Maybe we may not be able to bring you the forex today, but I've told you that we are still shaping up the program, and so beginning from maybe next week, we'll be able to bring you up to speed, specifically with what's trending on the forex market, how the city is performing against the major currencies. Talk about the dollar, talk about the Chinese yen, talk about the British pound sterling, the euro, and maybe the CFA. And when we get to the commodities market too, all the details there, we'll bring them to you. Today, I have a very good lineup for you. You've monitored in Parliament from the 11th of March, when the Minister of Finance, Honorable Kesel Atuforsen, read the budget on the floor of Parliament. He mentioned that they are making the means to be able to scrap some taxes that they describe, quote unquote, as nuisance taxes. And you would remember that same period around the year 2017, when the NPP came to power, they also did same, called them the nuisance taxes, and we had lots of jubilations around the Abosuokai and so on and so forth. But down the lane, there's been complaints about too many taxes, too many problems, and too much burden on the Ghanaian, again, quote unquote, user, the users of items that are produced, the users of the services that are produced. And so there's been too much complaint. The NDC, back in opposition, promised that when they come to power, they would scrap these taxes. And true to their words, they have scrapped these taxes. Yesterday, the minister, after reading the budget on the 11th of March, yesterday got the approval of Parliament to scrap these taxes. So what is pending now is the signature of the President to make sure that it becomes a law that we don't pay taxes on our electronic transactions again. So what exactly are we looking at with the E-Levy? When you are making bank transfers, Say you bank with Stanbic Bank and you are making a transfer to somebody at EcoBank, the charges that you were charged, now they will be no more. When you are making a transfer from your bank account to a mobile money wallet, or from a mobile money wallet to another bank account or to another mobile money wallet, all the charges that it came with have been scrapped. Maybe I'll walk to the screen later on and I'll be telling you about how it all started as the E-Levy, the kind of opposition that it was met with, how we ended up at the IMF and how much we needed as a country at the time, the crisis that we were in. I'll go back to the screen and I'll be telling you about all of them. But for now, let's see how the proceedings went in Parliament yesterday when the Honorable Minister tried to make sure that everybody in Parliament followed him to pass the bill.
The Speaker says that the reason for repeal is to ensure that there is availability of additional disposable income to households and to reduce the tax burden on individuals. Mr. Speaker, if this is a reason why we are repealing the E-Levy, then E-Levy is 1%. Why don't we go and repeal VAT, which is about 17%, if we are looking at ensuring that there's disposable income for citizens. But if we go and say that it is to allow for the citizens, to have disposable income, I think that this particular rationale, we should look at it again. But with these few comments, I do support the repeal of the bill.
I rise to support the passage of the bill repealing the electronic transfer levy. So, Speaker, the report says that if we pass the electronic transfer levy repeal bill, there will be more disposable income in the hands of individuals and households. 2 billion that they would have paid to government will now be there 2 billion. So this legislation, if passed, gives Ghanaians 2 billion Ghana cedis as disposable income that they can spend. They can pay their children's school fees. They can, build their homes. They can, those of us who want to get married, we can get married with it. Mr. Speaker, 2 billion Ghana cedis is being given back to Ghanaians by the passage of this. And not just this year. If we had continued the legislation next year, another 2 billion Ghana cedis, which would have been, Ghanaians are going to get 2 billion Ghana cedis, which would have gone to government, staying in their hands. Mr. Speaker, this is the policy consideration that is informing the decision to pass this legislation. And Mr. Speaker, I support the passage of this bill and urge colleagues to vote for the passage of the bill.
But just for the record, Speaker, let's all bear in mind that the rate as of that time was, we started off with 2.5%. The position of the minority then was that we should take it to 1%. And I heard what is new. That was it. And I heard then minority leader very loud all over the place. Principles, Speaker, that's what and I'm saying that as of that time, we all agreed that we should reduce it to 1%. And they also advocated for that. Now, after thought, you had a deep reflection and you want to abolish. Now we support it. Let's all go ahead and abolish it.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank all members who have supported the request by His Excellency President Mahama to abolish E-Levy. And I am emphasizing that President Mahama has been consistent, has stayed true to his promise to Ghanaians that when elected, he would abolish E-Levy. And that is exactly what we are doing. We are abolishing it. And the leader has emphasized the importance of it and the effect on Ghanaians. That in these difficult times, it is important that government gives back something to Ghanaians. And so we are giving 2 billion.
Honorable Minister, conclude. We have a long way to go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm grateful.
Honorable members, the second reading of the bill has been duly considered under Standing Order 167. And at the conclusion of the debate, the question is, as many as are in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted.
An act to repeal the Electronic Transfer Levy Act 2022, Act 1075, and the Electronic Transfer Levy Amendment Act 2022, Act 1089, and to provide for related matters.
Honorable members, the Electronic Transfer Levy Repeal Bill 2025 accordingly read a second time.
Right, so that's exactly what happened in Parliament as of yesterday. And I told you earlier on that I'm going to take you through a bit of what's been happening with the entire E-Levy. So you all remember, let me come to the screen and I'll tell you a bit about the history of it. So this one says the E-Levy was initially proposed at 1.75%, but was lowered to 1.5% in May 2022 and further reduced to 1% in January 11, 2023. So let's take a look at the government's target and actual collection within the period. I'll finish this and go back to a bit of the history. So in 2022, the E-Levy was estimated to raise 6.96 billion cedis. At the end of that year, 612.34 million was raised. So take note of the figure. The anticipation as of 2022 was 6.96 billion. Now, this can be approximately about or less, a little less than 10% of the actual expectation for that year. In the year 2023, the Ghana Revenue Authority collected 1.19 billion Ghana cedis against a target of 1.11 billion. So take note that with the ambitious target of 6.96 billion, which wasn't realized in the year 2022, but only 612.34 million was raised, the target was revised. The Ghana Revenue Authority had to revise its notes down to 1.11 billion in the year 2023, which it actually surpassed. So in the year 2023, the GRA collected 1.19, so that's about 8 difference billion, that's million. So the entire figure is 1.19 billion against the target of 1.11 billion. Now, in 2024, E-Levy was projected to generate 2.1 billion cedis. Government raked in 810 from E-Levy in first half of 2024. Very soon I'm going to be talking to Professor Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School. And when I do talk to him, we'll come back to that slide, that video wall, and we'll be asking him what he thinks are the reasons. Are there low motivations? Is there a disinterest, which we all know? But what exactly? Because the government intended to expand the tax net, And what we have all been talking about over the years is for the government to be able to widen the tax net. Now, Ghana is about a population of, let's say, about 33 million. So at the last Ghana Statistical Service count, we were a little over 30 million. I can tell you that out of that over 30 million population of the country, less than 3 million people, right, less than 3 million people are actually paying direct taxes. And this is a great concern for tax economists, for tax experts, for financial experts, and for everybody, for all of those of us who are paying direct taxes. When I come to work at Metro TV, and Metro TV is required to pay me my salary, whatever the amount is, there is a section of it that goes back to government as taxes. The problem for us as a country is that we have a chunk of the population in the informal sector. So when I pay that tax, the person who is not working for government, or who is not working for Metro TV, or who is not working for Stanbic Bank Ghana Limited, will not pay that tax. The person who is maybe doing a construction work for me somewhere, or doing some artisanal work for me, will not pay that tax. But when we all get to buy food from KFC, we'll still get to pay the VAT and all of the other taxes that we need to pay. So how do we widen this whole tax net? How do we get everybody involved? How do we formalize the informal sector? And one of the activities that the NPP government brought up to raise revenue, to expand the tax net, to make tax payments maybe attractive to the entire populace, was what they call the electronic levy transaction. I can tell you that when it was introduced, Ghana was at the brink of going to the IMF, raising revenue to support the economy and the growth of the economy. And it was at a time that we couldn't have done anything about it. However, maybe let's go back to the previous slide. At the rate of 1.75, so it says that E-Levy was initially proposed. 1.75. We spoke to academicians at the University of Ghana and UCC, Tech and other campuses, and they vehemently opposed the 1.75. Parliamentarians vehemently opposed the 1.75. Market women vehemently opposed the 1.75. Young entrepreneurs, Ghana startups, and the entire economy vehemently opposed the 1.75. So the discussion around scrapping the E-Levy or reducing this 1.75% on each transaction, and even the two-way method of transaction. So if I'm the one sending, am I the one going to pay? And if you are the one receiving, for example, if you are sewing my dress for me, and because you are within that sector, I'm just paying you and I don't know how you're going to get your taxes paid, am I the one still going to pay the tax on that money I'm sending you to the government? Or you, the business person, that's receiving the money, you are the one going to pay? Now, all of these discussions had gone on and misunderstandings. I went into meetings where the GRA had organized pressmen, maybe general stakeholders, to educate on the essence of the E-Levy. And they said it was one of the reasons why we may end up not going to the IMF. But because of the opposition, and some of us felt that the government had bad faith, and it is still happening. It's something that we've been talking about, that before you introduce any policy, before you read out your budget, well, the NDC did well this time around with the last budget they read. They did what they call the National Economic Dialogue, where they brought together people from academia, people from industry, people from the NGOs and everywhere to come and brainstorm on what they think should be captured in the budget. We saw Atoforsen go around the market, speak to people. We saw Atoforsen engage young people on social media and so on and so forth. So that engagement actually started for the budget. But with the E-Levy, we didn't see that. And we got into that problem of opposition to the E-Levy. And it was not from the opposition political party only, but the entire populace. And here we are. It had now to be reduced to 1.5 and now down to 1%. But people still felt, hey, no, you should take it off. The NDC promised that when they come to power, not the E-Levy alone, betting tax, what we generally call the Lotto levy, and all of the other levies they also think nuisance of, they will take it off. They have done justice to that. They have taken it off. in the reading of their budgets in Parliament. As of yesterday, like the video we played for you, we saw the Deputy Finance Minister engaging and all the other members of Parliament engaging. And here we are. So in 2020, I'll tell you about how much we've made. I just showed it to you. Anyway, this is the value of Momo transactions. That's the entire value, 2020 to 2024. You would see that in the year 2020, we made 571.8 million. Take through 571.8 million. And the target was well over, or just close to some 7 billion. And we only made 5.71. In 2021, 978.32. That's where we were hitting the 1 billion mark. 2022, our target, remember I showed you in the previous slide, was around 1.9 billion, and then we came to 1 billion and 70. Then 2023, we came to 1.912, and then 2024 as of last year, 3019.2. So we have never hit the target. That's it. Apart from, I think, 2022, where we were magnanimous with the targets that we wanted, and we were able to beat it by some few millions, we have not been able to hit the target. So that's actually it, and we've given you the figures. And I've told you that very soon I'm going to be talking to maybe some financial experts. I'll talk to Professor Lord Mensah. And then the industry itself, the Momo transaction industry itself. Now, some of the taxes that have been repealed is the emissions levy tax. After talking to them, I'll come back and explain all of these to you. And emissions levy, all of you know, if you use your car and the fumes that come out of it, you're paying something for it. That's 2025, it's been repealed as of yesterday. Revenue Administration Amendment Bill, 2025, as of yesterday. So all of these are pending the President's signature, and then they can get into the system and be operated on. Value Added Tax, that's Amendment Bill 2025, Special Import Levy. Please go back for me. Most of us are interested. I keep talking to Samson Asaki Awingobit, who is the Executive Secretary, Importers Exporters Association of Ghana. I'm sure when I get him, maybe we can put him on the line also. And I'll ask him specifically about the special import levy, because he's been very, very, very vociferous on this one about how taxes have affected the number of containers the Tema Port, the Takoradi Port received. We previously had Ivory Coast, we previously had specifically Burkina Faso, all routing their importations through the Tema Port. And so it was a very busy port. But they tell you now that you go and by 5 p.m. you're not seeing containers anymore. All the ships have offloaded. So when we get him on the line today, if possible, we'll ask him how he thinks this is going to improve the growth of the containers that we clear at the port, how busy the Tema Port is going to be if we get anybody at the Ghana Shippers Authority, or maybe the port also will get to talk to them. So this is a very, very, very important part of it. But we need to be able to analyze it well. You saw the discussions about the Treasury bill, how Dr. Gideon Boakum versus the Finance Minister, about how much it's going to rake into the country. Gideon Boakum believes that he has been vindicated because the economics and the finances of T-bill and all of those issues, rates, and all of those, how much they rake in are based on a certain mathematical calculation and discussion. And so the special import levy, Samson Asaki, if you are watching us, we may call you very soon. Now, growth and sustainability levy, Amendment Bill 2025, and then taxes on gaming and lotteries, lotto tax is also going on. Betting tax, I actually spoke to my barber about it, and I spoke to my driver also about it. They are interested in the betting, and they are always taking. I felt, and I asked them whether when the former finance minister, Honorable Dr. Amin Adam, said that they never taxed it, I went back to ask him that when you win, and my barber says he has been winning, and I told him, you may want to show me how to do it, so I get into it as well. But he told me that yes, he's won 9,000 before and he received 8,000. As to whether that was coming back to the government or the betting company, he's not able to tell. But now he's happy that this is going off. And so when he wins the 9,000, he will get the entire 9,000. When he wins 2,000, he will get the entire 2,000. And so that's also going off, betting tax. But, I mean, some of us have discussed that it was only raking in about 156 million cedis for the country. So it wasn't any huge money, which would tell us, or which would give us a huge money to be able to work in with. But this is it. I'll come back to some of these things. But let me get on the line, as I promised you, that I'm going to speak to Professor Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School, and a Momo agent who also will be interested in all of this, and ask them what they think, what their feelings are. For Prof, we'll get into a bit of details about the economics of all of these and the impact on all of these on the economy, how the finance minister will be able to raise money and so on and so forth. When we are done with this, we'll have a discussion on the ECG as well, energy discussion, and we'll have maybe a bite from the World Bank on the financial position of the country. But if we have Prof on the line, Prof, if you can hear me, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. And I will say good afternoon to our viewers out there.
I hope you're doing very well, though.
Very well, very, very well, very, very well.
Prof, let me ask you, I mean, you have been in this whole space. I remember speaking to you right from the introduction of the E-Levy. We spoke about the engagements, whether you were engaged or not, and all of these issues. Then we came back from the 1.75 to the 1.5, and then eventually to the 1. And some people had described it as a nuisance tax. What do you make of the fact that it's finally going off? Are you happy about it as a finance expert?
Yes, one way or the other, I am happy, because the E-Levy, we were made to know that it is a levy that is going to generate funds, and as a result of that, we got to remove a lot of we removed all the what do we call it, road tolls. And at the end of the day, we're thinking that the funds that will be generated over there will be used for our road maintenance and other things. But you drive on our roads, and clearly you see that the road keeps on deteriorating here and there. And I was against it because it was a fund that, was more or less earmarked for several, things as far as the country's expenditure lines are concerned. And I've never been in support of any funds that has a lot to do. I mean, earmark funds are supposed to be for specific purpose, and by so doing, I was against, the E-Levy. Another thing that made me went against it, which I think, if they were to start with, a very small percentage, it would have helped gradually build the confidence of the taxpayer or the consumer, and then gradually win his heart towards, high numbers of percentage of transactions that they do. One is that the electronic space is kind of a new space, which we're all, hoping that the government can leverage on that space to include all those who are not having access to the formal, banking activities, roping in, the informal sector into the tax network. But, if you throw in taxes over there, obviously it's going to scare, the ordinary person who is earning something mere and then paying 1% out of it, thinking maybe it's something small when it comes to, the various segregations of the economy. But those down there, it is a very high number, that 1% of maybe 1,000 or 100 Ghana cedis that he's going to pay. So from where I sit, I wasn't in support of it. But then, of course, by that time, government of the day, has control over how to implement, policies. And another thing that made me went against is it. Within the period of about 8 years, we had introduced and taken off some taxes. And then you ask yourself, tax removal and introduction of new taxes and then new levies here and there breeds, inconsistencies as far as, profit making is concerned. And every business will not be happy with an environment where they're not going to have what we call after-tax consistency in after-tax profit. And so I was looking at all this and then made me jump into conclusion that the E-Levy may not necessarily, help the ordinary person. And so government should do something about it. But then we couldn't get it through. But now a new government has come. And you see, with the E-Levy, we saw some growth in the economy. Let me put it that way. We were seeing some growth. But then I saw a vertical growth without, horizontal, growth. Vertical growth in a sense that if you go out there, somebody will tell you that our GDP has been growing around 5.3 thereabout. But this growth is not inclusive. This growth is not creating the necessary jobs that is expected. And so you could see the ordinary person who is not getting job to do, his income has gone down and is being taxed on the little transactions that they do across, their economic activities. So one way or the other, the typical Ghanaian will feel it. But then if you were to have the E-Levy and then jobs were being created, paying that 1% wouldn't have been a problem. So remember, I made a statement that, look, you cannot reap from where you have not sown. Usually, you introduce such taxes to the ordinary level when you have created jobs and you realize that all the economic agents, I'm talking about households, businesses, and even the government himself, government activities, also are all going on very well and be well engaged within the economy. Then you can introduce, the E-Levy and you will be able to rake in whatever you are looking for. But I'm happy, the current administration, is not focusing too much on revenue generation. Rather, they're focusing on expenditure rationalization. And as a result of that, they've been bold enough, to remove the E-Levy, knowing very well that there are some revenue measures that they are putting in place. So if you read the budget that was presented, the summary budget that was presented by the minister, clearly from paragraph 142 downwards, you will see all the revenue measures that government intend to use to fill in the gap that will be created, revenue gap that will be created as a result of removal of the E-Levy and then the betting tax and all those that goes with it. And again, what excites me most is to identify where the economy is active and then introduce, taxes over there. You remember, we had some sequence of growth, but anytime you hit the statistical service button, they tell you that, look, the growth is being driven by mining and quarrying. And the minister made a statement in the budget, which I was so happy. He says our natural resource rent, and when we say natural resource rent, is the difference between the revenue generated from a natural resource and the cost of producing, that, commodity. And so that difference is, what we call the natural resource rent. If you take Ghana, per the calibrations, ours is about 14% of our GDP, the natural resource rent. That is more or less a profit that goes to the mining companies. But the minister says, look, the 14%, if you relate it to what we are getting as, tax revenue from the mining company, we're getting only 1.5% of our GDP. So increasing it from 1% to 3%, one way or the other can, more or less generate, revenue for the country. I know the mining companies are not going to be happy, but then they should be considerate enough because the profits that they are making is so, huge. But then at the end of the day, they're not really part of, the economy that we are building because they just form one sector of the economy. Again, the minister made, mention of what we call, tax refund account that for the past 8 years has been accumulating around 29.11 billion, Ghana cedis. And over the years, we've used only 12.5%. So you ask yourself, where does the 16.6 goes? And he thinks, he can scale down, the threshold of the tax, the revenue that goes into the tax refund account. One way or the other, make room for some revenue to fill in, the revenue gap. He made mention of about, 3.8 being saved from this, reduction in, tax refund threshold. And by so doing, out of it, we can use about 1.96 billion to fill in the revenue gap that will be created by the E-Levy, because that is the projected, funds that we are expecting from E-Levy, this year. And then also talking about betting tax, he thinks we can make about 180 million, Ghana cedis to fill in the gap. So he's made room for how we can fill in the revenue gaps that will be created, again with expenditure reduction. But then also, Kwesi, let's look at this. For me, taxes we are managing an economy, and an economy is a system. If you want money immediately as an economic manager, that is when you introduce taxes that will give you money immediately. There are ways that you can get your taxes in the long run. That is more or less deferring the taxes now. So giving up the E-Levy now does not mean that we've lost this money in the economy completely. The reason being that if you, give out this E-Levy as a government, more or less you are going to boost consumption. When you boost consumption, what happens? You more or less, encouraging more production in the economy. And when you encourage more production, companies are going to make profit. So you're going to, get your, E-Levy that you lost from that direction, profit that the companies will make. Remember, companies are paying around between 25 to 30% of their profit as taxes to the government. Again, you can also encourage savings, and it's the same savings money that the government and businesses goes to pick from the bank for their economic activities. So one way or the other, it's money that is going to be lost by government now, but in the long run, it builds back into the economy through production and then also consumption.
But Prof, will it be enough? Because some of these things that you talk about, for example, are projections. Encouraging savings, for example, is projections. Even the E-Levy itself, the kind of projection they had made from the beginning that they wanted the target, GRA could not meet that target. And there were still shortfalls in revenue mobilization for the economy. There were still expenditure shortfalls and still deficits. Where we have come as a country, we still experience budget deficits. But moving forward, we should be able to have innovative ways. And I love the fact that you explained the point of the expenditure rationalization, which the minister is talking about. And right from the beginning of even his vetting, you could see clearly that he wanted to center more on the micro and cut down expenditure so that we rake in more revenue. But would that be able to close the gap? And you said that we haven't lost out entirely yet, but will it be able to close the gap, go ahead, mobilize enough revenue to support, for example, the development of agriculture? And you remember also that they have put out very ambitious programs in the employment creation sector, in the entire value chain sector, cocoa, for example. Now we are hearing about TCG. Is it enough?
Right. So the minister is very much aware, as far as the numbers in front of him is concerned. I don't think the minister will get up and say, he's going ahead to implement the removal of the E-Levy. He's done all the analysis. He knows how things can easily go, and he knows how to fill them in. From where I sit, if you are making, around 3.8 savings, and then ensure that you block some leakages that goes on as far as, procurement and other things in the government space is concerned, you should be able to save enough to make room for all the things you've mentioned, as far as, our expenditure lines are concerned. The leakages were too much. If you look at it carefully, and as a country, if we're losing about a third of what we are spending through corruption to unproductive sectors, clearly it tells you that if you have a government who is serious and ensure that they control, those leakages, they should be able to raise enough money to cater for the necessary expenditures that they have. So I'm not worried too much on how much the government should be able to raise. And as far as the budget that I read in front of me, he's made room for how to cater for those revenue gaps that will be created.
So, Prof, for the purposes of this discussion, please don't go yet. I'm coming back to ask you a lot of questions, and how the entire economy, some of the actions, especially on political will, some of the actions that the minister has taken. For example, on capping Get Fund and on capping NHIL and on capping some of the very essential areas that we need money pumped into so that they will be able to run effectively. The minister has uncapped all of these, but I'll come back to you on that. But because we are talking about e-levy and the transactions, we have on the line Charles Kwesi Ado, who is the public relations officer of the agents of mobile money. And Charles, if you can hear me, good afternoon. I can project that you must be very happy. You and your entire team should be laughing on your right side by now.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. Like you rightly put it, we are more than happy because we double as agents and equally double as subscribers. So the entire mobile money ecosystem is happy. You know, we initially stated the effect of the e-levy right from the 1.75 down to the 1%. And there were records or data indicating that the first quarter of the implementation of the e-levy, there was a lot of shutdowns with regards to agents. Most agents closed their shops. But
Charles, can you hear me well? Your line is breaking, so kindly position yourself for me well. I'm interested in what you're saying. You're making the point that lots of your agents shut down their businesses. That's your first point. So we are trying to get Charles Kwesi Ado, who is the public relations officer of the entire agents and association of mobile money operators across the length of the country. And he is telling us that most of their agents had shut down. And then he was making a number of points on the impact of the e-levy. I think I have him back now. Charles, so you may continue with your point. Right, so I was explaining to you that he's making some points about the impact of the e-levy, the introduction itself on the industry players. So those people who have set up one container, one store, one shop across the length and breadth of the country, who are making sure that facilitating e-levy transactions, especially mobile money, are smooth and effective, are those ones who close their shops. And so it means that if right from Ridge here, maybe towards Circle, you would have met 5 or 10 agents. Now, with the introduction of the e-levy, you would meet maybe only 2. That derails business. That stops business. That slows down business. We are going to get him on phone. I think the Zoom is not working, but we will still work out the Zoom and make sure it works. But whilst we do that, let me come back to you, Prof. Prof, if you can hear me. My point was about the political will. And do you think that there is a political will? We've seen budgets like this before, Prof.
Yes, so Kwesi, we may have to appreciate, you know, the political economics of the entire budget. I mean, you cannot take out the economic dynamics without political decisions. If you take, you know, the NDC government, they are more or less, I mean, socially oriented. MPP tries to do something with the free SHS and all. And that brings about, you know, the uncapping that we see as far as the Get Fund and all those, you know, expenditures are concerned. Clearly, it tells you that, yes, they want, you know, the economy to be vibrant at that kind of, you know, ordinary man's, you know, level. And so from where I sit, I'm not surprised to see those uncapping and, you know, removal of, you know, those, I mean, thresholds as far as the VAT, sorry, as far as the Get Fund and all those provisions are concerned. So I think it's something that we should have expected, and it goes with what the party stands for. So there is a political will, and I believe they will keep to it as it's supposed to be. Of course, they know the reasons why Ghanaians voted for them. I mean, Ghanaians voted for them, I mean, to make sure that the economy gets down to the doorstep of the ordinary man. Because we've had, economic growth that has been staying up to some extent up to 6%, 6.5%. But then the ordinary man was still, suffering without necessarily feeling the growth that is expected. So that is, what they intend to do. And I believe that there's more political motivation, to that effect.
Okay, so Prof, I think I have Charles now properly on the line. Let me have Charles and I'll come back to you to also talk about the vertical growth and now how we'll be able to move away from that and not be reporting only on the macroeconomic indicators and all of those growth, and we are still not feeling it in our pockets. But let me talk to you, Charles. You were on the fact that most of your agents are shut down.
Yes, so like I was saying, after the implementation, the first quarter, which is the first 3 months, most of them shut down because they were experiencing a lot of difficulty. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear now. Thank you. So, Charles, if you are by a set, if you are by maybe a TV set or a radio set, kindly move away from it. You have the conversation with me on it, and I'm sure it will be smooth now. Charles, can you hear me now? So we are trying to talk to Charles Kwesi Ado, who is the PRO for the agents and subscribers of the mobile money transactions across the country. And I explained to you that he was talking to us about the shutdown. But Charles, I'm told your line is very clear now. Forgive us.
Yes.
The network, I don't know where exactly you are currently, but it looks as if the network is disturbing you. But please go on.
Okay, so like I earlier stated.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Right
now.
after the implementation, the first quarter, most of the agent outlets was closed down because people never understood the policy in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
There was limited education with regards to the implementation of the policy. We had opportunity to visit the Jubilee House, the office of the president, and then we engaged them through the sector minister and the finance minister then, Honorable Ken Ofuriata. And we told them about the happenings, the actuals on the ground. Most Ghanaians never understood the whole thing. And to our amazement, when people come to do withdrawal, the automatic system debit, which is 1%, people even took it as an additional e-levy. So you realize that once there was not much interaction or engagement with the public, it became so difficult for the ordinary Ghanaian to understand the levy at the first place. Secondly, they ignored the agent body without doing any broader consultation. Mm-hmm. So if you look at their estimated revenue, which was 6.19 plus, they were unable to realize it. At least, I think the first year they were able to get less than, say, 10.2% of the total estimated value. Interestingly, the subsequent year, 2023, they projected 2.2 billion, but they were able to have 50% of that, even though they had reduced the percentage from 1.5% to 1%. We told them that it is not workable. Most of the banks that we work with were of the view that they are scared to give us loans because they don't know what will happen in the near future because of that e-levy. So those who had the low cost were able to give loans, but they did it on a high interest rate. So totally, the macroeconomy and the macroeconomy suffered much. But it will also interest you to know that Bank of Ghana report, the year-on-year report that they issue with regards to the fintech or mobile money, you could see that the transactional volume has even outreached that of checks. So it deceived them to believe that Ghanaians have at least ascribed to the levy. Mm-hmm. But the opposite was happening. So now that we've engaged major stakeholders, including the then opposition leader, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, and the then flag bearer of the NPP, Dr. Bawumia, all of them were of the view that they will get rid of it. But interestingly, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama have been able to do that for us. And I remember when we visited him, he made 2 key points. He said, one, E-Levy was part of the requisite requirement for the IMF. And so, therefore, whilst he's at the side of the veil, he cannot, on authority, tell us how he'll be able to do it until he assumes office. And to our amazement, the first budget reading, E-Levy was repealed. So it is a good news to us. And for us, we are hoping and believing that once the president assents to it, we'll have the way forward and make sure we grow our business as discussed. So for betterment of work, we are hoping and praying that we'll do the needful and make sure we realize what the government estimated to do. Secondly, I want to also put on record that agents are being attacked across the country.
Right.
And therefore, once government have taken a bold step to repeal this E-Levy, we are also counting on him to also take security as a very key cogent issue to protect the agent body. Because if the ecosystem will attract more investors, then we have to be protected. It will surprise me that right from January till now, we've had 11 deaths. The Ashanti region recorded 3, the Upper East recorded 3, while the other region shared the rest of the 7. So we are praying that government will take measures to do a lot of sanitization in terms of security and cooperate with other major stakeholders, for we know security is a shared responsibility. Equally, we are also taxing the sector minister to pass a bill in Parliament on how to regulate the mobile money ecosystem. It will surprise you that the mobile money ecosystem drives more on capital, but these agent bodies are on loans with high interest rates. So we believe that once government is bold enough to repeal this bill, then there's the need for us to capitalize those who are in operation into that sector.
Charles, when you say capitalize, what exactly do you mean? How do they take loans? I think maybe you want to explain the process to us. We come in with our money, or we come in with our transfers, and then yours is facilitation.
Yes, facilitation, but you need capital. You know, it will interest you to know that if you go or you walk into an agent point and you have 10,000 with you, the agent should have equivalent electronic cash 10,000, and it demands funds. Therefore, the agent have to go to the bank, liquefy that money into electronic before he'll be able to meet your need. So therefore, agent needs money. It is all about money, depending on your location. Either you need electronic or you need physical cash. And with that said, agents don't have any soup of funds that they are just working with. It is their own sweat. It is loans from banks that comes out with high interest rates, which they pay. Some even collateralize it. And my good brother, I think it is fair and better that we let Ghanaians know the taxes that the agent body are paying. We pay withholding tax, 10% withholding tax, even before our commissions are paid on the subsequent second weekend of the subsequent month. Equally, we pay business operating permit with the MMDCE. We equally pay rent, we pay land title fees. There are a lot that the agents are doing. And we cannot, looking at the benefit that the agent is putting up with regards to the economy. They are increasing employment rates. They are reducing unemployment. You see, they are employing those who are graduates for the SHS leavers. Those of us who are working as agents, majority of them are elites. They are graduates, but we don't have any jobs, and therefore we are putting all the factors of production to make sure that we find something better doing. So there's a lot government can do. First is security. Second is to capitalize the system for us in terms of locating us loans with lower interest rates. Before the E-Levy came into force in 2021, you could recall that the government then launched a program called the U-Start. The idea was to capitalize those prospective individuals who would want to take up a business idea. This is the opposite. We are already into business. Is it difficult for government to meet the needs of this agent so that they'll be able to increase the volumes of transactions, so that they'll be able to help bring down bank to the ecosystem, so that government will be able to have a fair data, and based on that data, they'll be able to propel policy that will best suit the need of the ordinary Ghanaian.
I am happy about the fact that you mentioned the 10% withholding tax and the business operating permits, because I was going to ask you whether you think you shouldn't be taxed.
We've been paying tax since Adam.
But is there no way you think government should raise revenue from, and we always introduce by talking about the fact that you are formalizing the informal sector, and so there are lots of people in that sector that do not pay taxes. Is there no way you think government should be able to rake in revenue from there? And I'll send that question to Prof.
Okay, so that question is so interesting. My brother, government is about leadership. It's about seeking for alternatives. If you have good ways of mediating affairs through diplomacy, through mediation, through negotiation with major stakeholders, trust me, all those investors in the ecosystem have invested hugely, i.e. MTN Ghana. They've invested hugely. There could be a way out that if every Ghanaian speaks on phone, there could be a fraction. In Uganda, this e-levy was scrapped to 0.5%. People were not feeling it. But when we told the leaders then, they never understood us. They only said 1.75%. They are okay with the 0.5%. And now it came to 1.5%. But the opposite happened. So sometimes when you prepare policies, you also look at the feedback. And if the feedback is not helpful, you engage major stakeholders. You pay heed to the people so that you'll be able to realize your estimated revenue. We are not saying Ghanaians should not pay tax. That is why we voted for leaders. They need to be innovative. There should be a way out. We need not to tax a system or a sector that is growing so well to make sure that we bring a CSH to that sector. Governments have a lot of ways to bring the informal sector to the tax net. It depends on how we will go about it. But for me, e-levy was not the best. It folded up most businesses. It gave people the alternative not to ascribe to the mobile money sector, and they were looking for alternatives. The old ways of doing things, taking money to the lorry station, paying 5 cedis on 100 Ghana cedis, sending it later for the recipient to call that he has received it. It was the old way and the archaic way. And the new way is digitization. Interestingly, governments want to do the 24-hour economy. I am telling government that our doors are open. This 24-hour economy will ride behind the mobile money ecosystem. And therefore, if government is really serious about the 24-hour economy, trust me, you will be able to help augment government effort to rake in the needed revenue as he anticipated.
Right, let me come back to Prof. Prof, so my next question to you from the e-levy issues, before we come to the general other economic issues, was the fact that we have all talked about, or we know that the economy needs to be expanded. Digitalization is one of the major acts of expanding the economy, which has been commended by locals and even international experts. But do you think that digitally there should not be a way of raising revenue? I'm not talking about necessarily taxing transactions, but digitally there should not be a way of raising more revenue. And then the follow-up would be that, do you think it will find its way back into the system, maybe under a different name, not necessarily e-levy, but a different name where government tries to? And we have typical examples. We started by telling everybody about 2017, when about 17 nuisance taxes had been cut from the budget when it was read, and the noise that it was met with. But down the lane, 8 years, we see a lot of now 2.5 NHIA, blah, 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 and all of these, the calculations and so on and so forth. Do you think it will not find its way back? So the two of them for you, Prof. Prof, if you can hear me, please unmute your mic and then let's go. Right, I can hear you.
Sorry about that. So we may have to appreciate the dynamics of the economy in general. I always have a position when it comes to taxes. Mm-hmm. You don't tax, sectors of the economy that are not active, that are not vibrant. There are sectors that, the intention is to grow those sectors. You don't place taxes there. When you do that, you end up holding up, the growth that is expected from, those areas. We all appreciate that, global transactions are moving electronic, and therefore in future, governments may have to introduce, taxes on those platforms. I don't dispute that fact. But then we need to appreciate the intensity of the usage of that platform. If it's more or less at the infantry stage, more or less at the stage where, those who are even using the platform are now building up, then you have to be careful how you introduce, taxes. But as we grow and we realize that the economy has shifted into those platforms, that is why I told you I was happy with the current budget that was read. The minister saw that the mining sector is what is driving the growth, and therefore, deems it fit to increase the taxes over there. For me, I won't, fault the minister on that, because that is where the economy is, and as a result of that, you may need to make sure you gain from that sector. But then in the end, if in future, if the yield, platform is what is driving the economy, it's part of the services sector, and I know the services sector is dominated by the banking sector, not necessarily the yield platform. So if in future it turns up that that is where we find, the economy, I don't think any government introducing taxes at that level will be at fault. So from where I sit, it has to do with the dynamics, and we need to appreciate, economic dynamics when it comes to introduction of.
Okay, so that's it. And Charles also talks to me about the regulation issues, and there's a whole lot of discussions we want to have about the entire digital sector regulations, and I'm sure when we get Honorable Sam George, we'll be detailing that and asking too much about regulating social media, for example, regulating AI and the revenues that they should be generating for people, and its taxes and so on and so forth. But for you, moving forward, a point of revenue generation for the country, not the taxation. But of course, once they are in business, Charles talks about the number of employment they are creating, the fact that lots of the university people you are training are getting into this space because there are no jobs, and so on and so forth. Some of them can be able to expand, but there is not enough regulation, Prof.
Yes, of course. It's a new area, but the unfortunate thing about Ghana is that we wait for an establishment before we send regulation to them. It's supposed to be the other way around. The regulators are supposed to, look into the future and then get to know the dynamics. I think, Bank of Ghana, with its own capacity, may have to even improve to the point where, they may have, electronic kind of regulation, structure within, the organogram of, Bank of Ghana. So we may have to look into the future and see how, things are going to be, and then change the structures that we have to suit exactly what, the future comes about. But for regulations, I can tell you for now, we are at, at a lower side, let me put it that way. But I think in future, we may have to look at how we can restructure the existing regulatory framework to ensure that we absorb, this electronic space in the regulatory activities.
But Prof, let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask Charles the same thing. I'm sorry for keeping you on. I will still keep you on for a while because I'll come back to some other issues briefly before I let go of you. But let me ask you this. Charles mentions that if you look at the entire transactional volumes of mobile money transactions or activities, they have actually gone up. So right from its introduction to now, according to Charles, who is the leader of the industry, these transactions have gone up. But the requisite revenue projections haven't been met. And I'm wondering, what happens and how do we not meet it as a country? For example, the GRA should be able to project that if we have 2 million transactions this year, or if we have 10 million transactions, we are going to be able to make 1 billion Ghana cedis. And that's based the premise on which they make their projections. So why do we not, as a country, meet these projections when even the transactions are going up?
Yeah, so there are two things we may have to look at.
Right.
How realistic are the projections? That is what we need to appreciate. I mean, the projections are based on what assumptions? And I always ask my colleagues, I mean, if you project something, what are you using to project? Is it historical information that you are using to project, or you are using the environment in general, how things can change? Now, you may project, but then in the end, it does not necessarily mean that you should meet exactly what you projected. Otherwise, you cannot be a Captain Planet where you foresee the future and get exactly. But the question is, how deviated, are we from what is projected? If the deviation is so huge, then we have a cause to worry. But if the deviation is not that big, then we don't have to worry ourselves too much, because it's a projected figure. If it's a projected figure, it is not expected that it will be exactly what is realized, going forward. Now, when it comes to the E-Levy and then the informal sector, we have to be careful. Now, the measurability of the informal sector's economic, structure is quite difficult. And from where I sit, the literature, no country has been able to measure, the GDP component of, the informal sector. Okay, so effectively, how it is projected, I don't know how, they came by that. But I can tell you that, look, projections are not necessarily realizations. There are always deviations from it. But as to how big the deviation will be, that is what we need to worry about. But I don't think if the deviation is, too small, we have a cause to worry.
Right. Prof, so kindly hold on for me. Let me get to Charles briefly. Then I'll go on break and come back to ask you a few questions before I let go of you. So, Charles, the same question to you. You were telling me that your number of transactions keep increasing as an industry, but the monies we are realizing from you are not hitting the targets.
Yeah, so it's so interesting. When the introduction came, people began to look for alternatives. The alternatives were, one, the issuance of agent SIM. The agent SIM is for business people like ourselves. We are able to do withdrawal and we are able to send to a third party. But those who were enjoying the services by sending money and receiving money were issued with what we call merchant SIM. Merchant SIM are for businesses. So indirectly, those customers who come to patronize us sort of dodge E-Levy by going in for merchant SIM, which they do receive, and then they go directly to the bank and cash out. Unlike before, that they will have to come to the agent who has the ability to send, to withdraw, and to even do all transactions. So the issuance of the merchant SIM by the telcos also diverted most of the E-Levy estimated amount. But the sector minister, by then, they never understood the whole concept. We explain matters up with them, but anytime they seems to be on top of issues, I don't know where they were getting their briefings, but we were on the ground, the actuals were with us.
Right, I'm letting go of you, Charles, but so you tell me, one, government should rely on you for the 24-hour economy because you think your industry will be the backbone. Government should provide security for you. Government should do regulations for you. There are three major things I've picked from you. Any final thing that you want government to do for you? What kind of partnership do you want?
We need collaboration. One, government should empower us to be able to meet the needs of our prospective customers, thereby financing our activities. Government should come to our aid with regards to prosecution of robbery attacks. When such issues comes up, government, there should be a separate, a fast-track court that people will be deterred to repeat same errors or mistakes again. We are also saying that government should provide us with CCTV cameras. Interestingly, for the past 1 month, we've been posting on our Facebook page direct footage of robbery attack, how it happens. And it seems to be a trend. Men in motorbike helmets with bag behind them, walking into the office or a shop and then began to display arms and attack agents. We want government to bring about the old method, the visibility, the police visibility, that people, the market areas or prime areas where businesses thrive, we want government to deploy more policemen. In Accra, you see them here and there. It is good. Government should replicate same across the country so that it will put a bit of scare. The last one is with the citizenry. Agents are your family members. Agents are fathers. Agents are mothers. We belong to a society. We are Ghanaians. We are helping grow the economy. We don't want situations whereby an agent will walk in to his shop and never return. I can speak and say on authority that the most riskiest business now is mobile money, because when they attack you at a workplace, they know they are getting something. Equally, when they do same in the house, they know they are going to get something. So government should devise a very nice policy security-wise to be able to help safeguard our threshold.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me come back finally to Prof before I end this discussion. Prof, you've been on, and in all of this, I am tempted to think, or to let me ask you rather, what you think will be the way forward for the economy. Some people are saying there is some level of stability. I mean, not necessarily based on the E-Levy, because it even hasn't gone yet. It's still pending the signature of the president, but some kind of confidence, investor confidence, people coming in from outside to invest in the economy, some stability on the part of the industry players who want to get into business. At the ports, I hoped we had gotten Samson Asaki also online and so on and so forth. But for you, you are the expert. You sit on the side and analyze it for us. And from where I sit, I have sat under you in class. I've sat here, discussed with you. I've followed all your discussions, and you are always on point. So tell us, what do we expect? What do you think is going to happen moving forward?
I think with the economy and the businesses, we may have to look at the posture of the government of the day. And this government has given us enough signal. The fact that the budget has been read and the budget deficit is around 3.1% of our GDP tells you that, look, this is a government that is approaching the economic management from the, the conservative kind of approach, and not too much aggressive in reading budget with a huge deficit and being on the market to, borrow funds, unnecessarily. If you look at, the recent rejection of T-bills by the government, it's also enough, evidence to tell you that, look, this is a government that, wants to move the economy to the corridors of the private sector. Because over time, if government is able to control, the usage of these funds, I think the banks will not rely so much on, the T-bills and other things. And I was proposing that, in order for the funds available not to compete with a dollar, government should be quick to introduce some kind of medium-term bonds after the debt restructuring to ensure that at least they would diversify the investable space for investors. So if they reject some of the T-bills that investors will be bidding for, they will end up, buying the bonds, and the few that, they want to buy with the dollar weight, that is fine. But then without any intermediate, investment like the bonds, I mean, the investors are going to switch between T-bills and the dollars. So I was, proposing that, look, we should get quick to, introduce some local bonds. I mean, in the medium term, just not too far away from the T-bills maturities. And so that will help in diversifying the investable assets that the investment community will have. Again, if you look at, the posture of the government when it comes to expenditures, I mean, clearly they've given the signal of cutting the expenditure. This is the first time reading a budget that our expenditure did not go up more than 10% compared to last year's, expenditure. So it tells you that there's that kind of, stability when it comes to, the economic management. And that is why possibly the investor confidence, keeps on growing. So we hope that over time, with all these, initiatives that the government is putting in place, interest rate structures will start coming down, inflation coming down, and then the private man can easily have access to funds. Like my good friend who is talking about, government providing funding and also, providing security. I think, when the economy is very good and interest rates are very high, if you're a Momo vendor and your interest or your profit that you are making is more than the interest you're supposed to pay on your, on the loans, then obviously, you can have the confidence to go to the bank to go and take a loan. And then, once you make your profit, you can pay the interest on it. So we all hope that with these decisions that are being taken, we'll have an economy that the private man can contribute to the growth of the economy, not an economy that the growth will be mainly driven by government activities.
Right. Thank you very much, Prof. So Professor Lord Mensah is a financial expert, of course. He's also a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Charles Kwesiado is the PRO agents and subscribers of the Mobile Money Agents Association. I am actually moving on, but I'm told I have Samson Asaki Awingobit online. We called him very last minute to join in the conversation, so I'm going to give him some time. Samson, thank you very much for joining in. And I'm interested in the special import levy, which has been scrapped. It's pending the president's approval, and then it can begin operation maybe from tomorrow or from Monday. Are you happy? Should I even ask whether you're happy? I think you're happy about it.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm speaking to Mr. Free.
Yes, Samson, this is Kwesi Free.
Okay, right. Good afternoon and good afternoon to your listeners.
Good afternoon.
I strongly believe that, yes, since yesterday, Ghanaians are happy that this e-levy issue has come to be the thing of the past. Indeed, it's not just the business community, but of course, as you are rightly aware, there are some other business communities who use Momo very regular in terms of transferring monies from their bank to pay duty, wherever they find themselves. Assuming you've had your cargo at the port and you are outside Ghana and the agent have your documentation, the agent has process finished, the agent need to pay duty. One of the day that you have to carry fiscal cash to your agent, and the agent will then carry fiscal cash to the bank. All this paperless and all this cashless society would help us. And so you can imagine if someone was paying a duty of 300,000, 1% of the 300,000 is a huge amount of money that could have used to transport his or her cargo from the port to the warehouse or from the warehouse to the port for export going. And so I strongly believe that it's a relief to all of us, not just the business community, but it's a relief to all Ghanaians. Assuming you want your fuel filling station to buy fuel, pay for fuel, and you want to pay Momo, and the fuel attendant will tell you, look, please add the charges because the e-levy tax will come. So you can imagine that that wasn't good. That wasn't an encouraging Ghanaians to really go into the cashless society. So I strongly believe that the promise that the government made when they were in opposition have come to a reality. Indeed, I have heard that the minority leader called that why didn't they abolish the special import levy, but rather asking for amendment. I think I'm told that the COVID issue and then the VAT rationalization, the minister promised that after the budget he was going to engage with the business community to discuss the way forward and then see the area that they can do to support the business community. I strongly believe that something has been done. Let's wait and see. Let us see going forward the engagement. The government has a mid-year budget review to do, and the government also will have a budget to present I think sometime November this year, as against 2026. And so we will continue to push and to make sure that the business community, what the business community actually looking right now, I've been telling you, the media guys, is that exchange rate stability is what we are looking. City stability. Inflation should come down. Prime rate should come down. Interest loans at the bank should come down. Borrowing at 30% you cannot do business and survive. And when our counterparts in South Africa and Kenya and the rest are borrowing per 6%, per 10% per annum. And so these are some of the areas that we businesses are even looking for, if they're able to do. And of course, yes, we were also asking, the federal government introduced the 2% upfront tax at the port, VAT, and also increased in the latter part of 2023 and 2024 budget. They introduced the 2% VAT in the port, making it 15% now. And I heard in this new budget that they said that they were going to, the decoupling of the VAT and they have insurance that was on its own. They want to reverse it and then engage us to look at the rationalization. I am looking forward to see that. Then we are also looking forward to see a fixed rate at the port. A fixed rate that the custom officers, the rate the customs are using calculating the duty every 2 weeks. Like assuming last Friday you had a duty component to pay and you couldn't pay Friday, you couldn't pay Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Then on Tuesday morning, they will say go back and do a post entry to correct, because if customers were using 13 series in calculating, and this week they're using 14 series, you cannot go and pay that. I have gotten my tax bill last week, so even though it's a Tuesday, I can still pay the same amount. You will know. You will have to go back to do a post entry to correct it. So meaning you are going to increase the difference that you have to add up to your tax bill before you can pay the tax. I think we want a fixed rate at the port that can run for at least 4th quarter, every 4 months, and subject for review.
But something
what we are looking for.
Can you tell us in summary, those of us who are importing items, maybe if I'm importing a car or I'm importing anything at all, the price that I was paying before now, let's say I'm importing a Toyota Corolla 2015 or 2020. So if I was paying, say, 100,000 as duty, and I was complaining that taxes at the ports are too high, with this, is it going to go down?
Depending on the mode in which you are going to pay, if you are going to use your bank direct GRA, that the E-Levy will not affect you. But if you say, oh, I'm busy, and I know how busy you are, you cannot go there. But you can use, the GOG, you can use the Momo to pay straight away. And you are going to move that 100,000 from your bank through your Momo to GOG, through MTN, or any of the network. What it means is the 1% will have applied for it. So you are no more going to pay only 100,000. You are paying 100,000 plus the 1%. So the 1% could be, let's say, maybe 10,000 or 5,000 or 9,000 or 8,000. That is a cost to you. Could have avoided it. And now, if you are going to pay, you just pay the 100,000 and nothing else.
All right. Thank you very much. So that's Samson Asaki Wingo Bates on the line. He was explaining to us how this will impact the entire business community, especially from the perspective of the Importers Exporters Association. Now, yesterday the World Bank actually did a press conference, and they are telling us that Ghana is ranking lowest in market competition, business entry, and dispute resolution among sub-Saharan African countries. That's very bad. And this is according to the World Bank's Business Readiness Report 2024. I'll find a copy of the report and go through it, and maybe we'll share the details with you. But for now, Ghana is the lowest ranked country in terms of business entry. This is a problem because we actually have AFTA situated here in the country. That's the Free African Trade Area. Their secretariat is here in the country to support the maybe coming together of African or West African countries or African countries, allow startups, allow businesses to grow, and allow businesses transactions across the borders. And so if we are ranked as the least in the competition when it comes to business entry, well, that's some news anyway, but this is coming from the World Bank. And that's speaking at the launch of the report, Senior Manager for Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone in the International Finance Corporation, Kyle Kelhofer, called for increased action targeted at improving business environment. Let me just take a bit of the bite from Kyle, and let's see what he actually said.
The so-called middle income trap. So the fact that they struggle to progress to high income levels. The World Bank study has shown how middle income countries need to achieve growth rates of 5% or more in order to escape this trap. And for low income economies, they need to achieve even higher growth rates of 9% or higher in order to eliminate poverty within a decade.
I'll make sure we come back into the detail of this, maybe in subsequent productions, next week somewhere. But that's a difficult thing to comprehend, that Ghana, with AFTA and all the Ministry of Trade and so on and so forth, is still ranked as the lowest in business access from other countries, people accessing us. We are rounding up the program, but the Concerned Drivers Association of Ghana, CDAG, have called on government to address surging spare parts prices in Ghana. Now, they say the government should critically examine the alarming surge in spare parts prices, which continues to burden drivers and transport operators nationwide. Despite the absence of additional taxes, the relative stability of the dollar, the prices of spare parts keeping increasing without.
Ama, nansi mi jeno wo bin enko ye kwao. Ama ma ye bohu se kontomra akija.
Nansi me hu se me nyo basi makura. Ama me kunu me into kwankwa. Oh you right. Enye mo go. Give us GC lecture and the capsules. Aye num boom. En ho asem na mo kana. E boa emma ene meme nyina. Na ma wo ba ye obesima. Na be ma so aye be masima. Ya, we be boa wuku. Ama ne giant sa wo de hye no botum. Na wanyinya n'ani ntisese ne oyi chokmo. GC mixture, MMA capsule, Achesa.
Appeal for a batter, one more menu for one and Kwada when you feel to me. Achesa.
Step up with DSTV and we'll show up by giving you more incredible entertainment.
Going to have a little fun.
Upgrade your subscription between the 13th of January and the 31st of March and get an even higher package for a whole month on us.
Buckle up, here we go.
There's nothing better than putting a little bit in but getting a lot out.
Time to boost some office morale.
Incredible!
When you want to build a future, you gotta know what you want.
Step up and we'll show up on your home of entertainment, DSTV.
Attention all farmers, are you ready to take your crops to the next level? Introducing 3 effective organic composts that will revolutionize your farming practices. ACAP, KCAP and IRECOP brings to you the ultimate solution for your fertilizer needs. Introducing the ACAP Grade A, KCAP Equiafua Jinkwa and the IRECOP with cocoa blends, palm blend and mulch. These are made from locally sourced municipal solid waste. And these are the perfect choice for sustainable farming. Join the organic revolution today. Boost your crop yield, improve soil health, and support sustainable farming practices. Choose ACAP, KCAP, and IRECOP organic compost for a greener and bountiful harvest. For your purchase and more information, call the numbers on your screen. Our products are endorsed by COCOBOT, Planting for Food and Jobs, and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture.
Dasibre Kwekubuating the third, Omahini of New Drabin Traditional Area, Nana Drabin Sewa the second, New Drabin Hima, Nana Amwenima Okukudrufo, Sushen Hima, Nana Abena Enchiwa Nkabum Hima of New Drabin, Ebisio Penny Nana Kofi Chiame, Germany, Oba Penny Comfort Omane Ajman Sushen, Mrs. Grace Ajalolo Koforidia, Apostle Eric Nyameche, Chairman, Church of Pentecost, Apostle